Andy Nowicki, altrightnovelist.com. I always run the risk here of becoming indulgent. I think it is a problem that is faced by anyone who is shameless enough to put himself out there in front of the world, even though the world doesn't necessarily want to see him. And I'm one such person. I've spoken before about how I have a certain exhibitionistic streak, and this tendency can sometimes, if left unchecked, can lead a person to become indulgent, overly sharing, and so forth. And I generally try to keep this in check. My proclivity or my tendency, my temptation to indulge and just make this all about me. This is my diary. Look, world, what I'm going through. Here are things that here are all of my naked thoughts thrust before you. You know, who wants to see that? But I also think without this exhibitionistic streak, I wouldn't be here at all. You know, regardless of how many people actually watch these videos. So I am going to beg your indulgence one more time. I'm going to return to the subject that I discussed yesterday because I've had a few more thoughts about it regarding the female reviewer who gave me a 1-star review and said that I seemed creepy because I wrote a book about an inappropriate relationship between a professor and a student while I'm a professor. And I've been thinking about this a little bit more. And yesterday I talked about the ways in which this particular saga, if you will, reflects the wider saga of things and dovetails so interestingly with the incel story, how incels are suddenly in the news and incels are suddenly the whipping boy of the establishment after the event in Toronto, for which everyone who identifies as an incel apparently got the blame, and everyone who identifies as an incel is now apparently somebody who just wants to kill a bunch of women or to kill a bunch of people, because it was an indiscriminate slaughter, just like the slaughter in California a few years ago with Elliot Rogers was also ultimately just an indiscriminate killing of a bunch of people, even though I guess he planned to kill a bunch of hot sorority girls, but that didn't work, so he just went to plan B. I don't mean to laugh about it, but it is kind of funny in a dark sort of way. But to just, I don't know, to just become so reckless and so spasmodic and so haphazard, I don't know. I mean, come on, you got to do better than that, man. If you're going to have a mass murder. No, I shouldn't say that. Okay, I'm getting into territory now that I definitely shouldn't be getting into. I shouldn't even be joking about this stuff. It's not funny. Repeat, it, period, is, period, all caps, not, period, all caps, funny, period. Okay, so no more laughing. And I apologize for any laughter that I elicited or perhaps failed to elicit up to this point. So considering this particular thing with me, not a big deal, not a big issue. You're blowing it out of proportion, Nowicki. Who really cares? You know, it's one woman deciding to write a 1-star review harping on the fact that you are a teacher, or you were a teacher who lived in Savannah, and that she wrote a story which was set in Savannah about, or in which a teacher had an inappropriate relationship with a student. Well, no, it's not a big deal. It barely registers, and I'm well aware of that. And I'm well aware that I'm veering over the line into indulgence zone right now in some ways, but I'll try to make it worthwhile, because I think what's interesting about this, just taking everything out of it, taking my emotions out of it, taking my subjectivity out of it, taking out of it that it's about me, and that I, of course, have a certain relationship with me that I can't avoid having. Just putting all of that aside, just thinking of it as a thing that happened. It would still interest me if it happened to somebody else who was me, but I was able to see it somehow in a non-subjective way. Because yesterday I said that I thought what was irksome about it was that it seemed that she was suggesting, and if you're watching this video before ever seeing the video that I'm referring to, I suggest you go back and watch it to get the context here. But in that letter that she wrote, or in that review that she wrote, that 1-star review, which didn't talk at all about the book, but instead just talked about how the author is creepy for writing it with the subject matter that it had, given that he's a professor in Savannah. Given all of that, I still think there's something of interest to take from it. And what is that? Okay, yesterday I said that it was irksome that she had suggested that I maybe had a spotty record, that I was maybe morally unsound, that I was maybe unethical, that maybe I had slept with a student or two or three, who knows how many. But now what I am inclining to think instead, with all of the incel stuff going on, and with incels being so hated on, so reviled, regarded as so repellent, I think that I am the equivalent of what an incel is. I am an analog of this wider movement or proclivity, which is given voice in our day and age because we are living in a time of sexual liberation, where the sexual revolution ran its ugly course, and now we are seeing the bitter fruit that it is bearing. And one of the bitter fruits that is being borne by the sexual revolution is that men who are low status are just generally reviled. And I'm not saying this to have a pity party right now. Okay, I'm not saying feel sorry for me. I'm trying to talk about all of this again, just to look at it objectively and see what's going on, almost in a sociological way. When monogamy was the norm, then you had a situation in which, and I'm not saying that women, I've said this many times before, but I'll say it again. I'm not saying that women and men aren't both guilty of many capable of bad behavior. I'm not someone who says that men are noble and women are ignoble. I've said that many times, of course I'm not the other way around either. I think that men and women both have a capacity for nobility and both have a capacity for ignobility. What we have today is a situation in which female ignobility is facilitated and in some ways even recommended. It comes easier with the culture because after monogamy has been, as it has eroded, as the sexual mores that attended monogamy have eroded to the degree that they have, what we have now is a situation in which there's nothing that restrains the baser, more ignoble side of woman. There's little that restrains, also concomitantly, there's nothing that restrains the baser and more ignoble side of the high status man. So the high status man gets, basically has his harem. I know this is a critique that's been voiced many, many times before, and or a perspective, a reflection that many people have talked about before. And so I'm not saying anything incredibly new or original here, but I just want to reflect on it in a way that maybe helps to bring a bit of light to one aspect of it all. So the high status men maintain their harems, which encompass all levels of women, and low status men get the scraps basically, and are looked down on and reviled because it's sort of seen that there's no real there's nothing restraining the culture from spitting on these people. And the incels, I think, are the incel development, the fact that this group has coalesced around the term incel, involuntary celibate, which I have my problems with the fact that they focus so much on their frustration and not getting what they want and all of that. And I've talked about my belief that a stoical perspective is more manly. But putting all of that aside, just looking at things sociologically, this is where we're at. And there's nothing that restrains hypergamy on the female side, and that's the more ignoble aspect of female nature. There's little that restrains a woman from trading up, even if she's with somebody who is good and kind and true. She wants something better, and if the culture isn't telling her that her commitment is important, and the culture is just telling her, follow your dreams, you go girl. I mean, that's what culture is telling women right now. It's saying, you go girl, follow your dreams, ain't nothing you can't do, baby. And to men, it's saying, to men who aren't on the higher echelon of power and status, to men, the culture is saying, buck up, man up, quit bitching. What, you think you're entitled? I mean, can you not see an imbalance there? And can you not see how this imbalance can lead to some very bad things happening? Because you're getting a lot of angry, frustrated, low status men who feel put upon and feel like anytime they desire something and get rejected and evince frustration over getting rejected, then they hear this, what, you think you're entitled? You think you're entitled? So in this whole framework, this whole cultural framework, getting back to me, let's talk about me. Here's me, the exhibitionist again. Here's what I think really happened with this female reviewer. She wrote these things about me, not because she actually thought that I was getting with my students, but because I'm a low status, gross kind of guy. I mean, I'm not saying I am, but I'm saying that's how she thought of me, I suspect. A low status, gross kind of guy who's maybe she thinks, about how I'm affiliated with these particular these movements like the alt-right, which are frowned upon and seen as reprobate and so forth. She must know something about me, and in order to have become aware of me and become enough aware of me to look at this description of this book that I had on Amazon, and to care enough to write this 1-star review that trashes me personally and tells people that I'm gross and creepy. But here's the thing, here's the crux of the matter. It's not that I'm creepy because I'm a womanizer, or would it be a girlizer? If you're a grown man who is ostensibly seducing young girls, college-age girls or whatever, having inappropriate relationships, that's not the issue for her, I don't think. I think it's pretty obvious that I'm not that kind of guy, because I wouldn't, what I know is that I wouldn't be that kind of guy because I wouldn't want to be that kind of guy. But what she knows is that obviously I'm not that kind of guy, because who'd want to be with me, right? I'm a low status guy. I'm low on the totem pole, socially speaking. Again, I'm not saying this self-pityingly, just looking at it as it is, trying to assess it objectively. So what's creepy about me? What moved her to attack me in this way wasn't the fact that I was actually doing anything. It was the fact that I wrote this book in which a teacher has an affair with a student, and that it's gross because I must be getting my jollies off of thinking about things like that. In other words, it's more about me being gross and creepy, not for my behavior. Because if I were the kind of man, if I were high enough on the totem pole, socially speaking, to to be having affairs with students, to have willing affairs with young women, to have young women wanting to sleep with me, if I were that kind of person, she wouldn't think of me as gross. Do you understand what I'm saying here? She wouldn't think of me as creepy. She would maybe not approve, but I don't think she would be moved to say what a creep, because to her, I would be, high status, and high status men can get away with things like that, because men, again, the post-sexual revolution age has created a culture which is perfect for high status men, and not bad for a wide range of women. Okay, I'm not saying that women have it easy, and again, I want to make that clear. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that that the culture has created this type of situation. So that is a radically different notion of creepiness. The reason why this woman said that I was creepy, I suspect, this is all speculation, this is me stipulating, this is me mind reading, admittedly. but not based on nothing. I'm not just pulling this stuff out of thin air. The reason why I believe she wanted to tell the world that I was gross and creepy is because I was not doing the kind of things that were being described in the book. But I was thinking about doing those kinds of things, she thought. I was obviously fantasizing, getting my jollies off of doing those kinds of things. And that's just gross and icky. And, you know, we need to just, we need to just make this guy feel like he's scum. We need to let the world know that a low status man who puts these kinds of gross fantasies out there to the world, in front of the world, we need to let that person know that it's not okay. If he were a high status, then it would be okay. It might even be kind of sexy. I don't know. So, just a thought. I hope that I've been able to express myself in a not totally convoluted way. But I think this is the last thing I'm going to say about the affair with the 1-star review. And I'm afraid that I have gotten over the line again and become indulgent, but I hope you'll forgive me, because hopefully I've been able to glean some insight from it. And again, nothing I'm saying here is intended to be poor me, feel sorry for me, or to be, you know, fishing for compliments or anything like that. Because I'm just talking about it in an objective sense, looking at it objectively, as if it were somebody else that this were happening to. These would be my thoughts. When I say that I'm considered gross and creepy, I'm not saying that I am. I'm not putting myself down. I'm saying this is how I'm regarded by the type of person, the type of woman who writes this kind of review. So let me know what you think if you want. My name's Andy Nowicki. Check out my work at altrightnovelist.com. Thanks for watching.